Hey, how many kids do you have? You have four kids? Wow, I bet you make a lot of money. Can I rent one? Maybe two? I'll pay you $10 an hour. Hey, it'll give you some extra cash. I know, it sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? I worked with this girl, and when she was born, she had some developmental disabilities. Her mom noticed it right away. She didn't quite look like the rest of the newborns. So instead of her being a nurturing mother, she chose to rent her out. And she first started renting her out to satanic cults for their rituals. Who knows what they did to her? Throughout that process, she met her boyfriend, who was a child pornographer. They began renting her out to his fellow buddies, his fellow pornographers, pedophiles, who knows what. When she was 8 years old, they sold her for a flat $500 to another child pornographer. And this cycle continued till she was 17 years old when somebody finally chose to call, when somebody finally chose to take the 2 minutes and make a report. Child abuse occurs every day. Many times it's occurring, and we don't know what to do to help, or should we get involved, or the triggers, or where to go. Today, I'm going to teach you how you can help when you feel a child is being abused or neglected. I'm going to explain to you the triggers for child abuse, recognizing signs of child abuse and neglect, and how to report abuse. The first thing in understanding child abuse, there are many triggers and there is rarely a single cause. Peter Cattell, author for Our Out of Wedlock Births, The Root Cause, he writes about children living in poverty, states that 1 in 5 American children lives in a household with the income below poverty level, which is $22,050 for a family of four. Try budgeting that for that many people. That averages out to approximately about $1,800 a month to figure out food, daycare costs, clothing, housing, electricity. We all know it's hard to live off of that. Stress is a big trigger. Then you may throw in that a child may be ill, or a baby won't stop crying, or sometimes, as sad as it sounds, sometimes a parent's personality and a child's personality just clash. And when times are rough, that clashing can then lead to abuse. Now that you know a few triggers of abuse, that brings me to my next point, recognizing signs of abuse and neglect. Child abuse is more than just broken bones and bruises. Physical abuse is shocking from all of the scars that they leave, but not all abuse is obvious. There's sexual abuse. A lot of times that's happening behind closed doors. And because people feel ashamed, they don't want to explain it and they don't want to tell anybody because they're scared and they're embarrassed. Both boys and girls are at risk for child sexual abuse. But most of the time boys go unreported because of the negative stigma that they're afraid may be attached to them. Authors Melinda Smith and Jean Siegel, recognizing, preventing, and reporting child abuse, indicate multiple signs of child abuse for all different forms of abuse, including emotional abuse. They explain that emotional abuse can be terror when you want to try to scare a child and make them scared of what they may or may not do and the consequences of what could happen if they just walk into a room incorrectly, or if they do something wrong and their parent or their caregiver is going to attack them verbally and put them down emotionally. But some of the signs when you to see if a child is being abused, a big sign is temperament. You're going to see major mood swings. It could be withdrawn, it could be explosions of anger. Another sign of abuse is you're going to see that they're not going to be connected to their parent or their caregiver. Neglect can also be you're going to they could smell. They're going to be filthy. They're going to be embarrassed, and they're going to have low body language because they're not going to have any type of self-confidence. There's many signs of abuse. If it's a child that isn't acting like a normal child of their age, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're being abused. However, you need to look at the full picture. Now that I have briefly described a few signs of abuse, you need to know what to do with it in case you ever come across a child that is in need. You need to know about reporting. And according to the Children's Trust Foundation, nearly 80,000 reports are filed a year just in Washington. That is just another reason why it's important that you continue to report. Because then what reporting does is it starts to generate a cycle for that parent. Because there's many negative stigmas to reporting to CPS. Some people are afraid that the abuser may know their name, that they're, know your name, that you're calling on them. And that's untrue. It's completely anonymous. Some people feel, well, I called once. I don't think that anybody ever followed up, so I'm not going to do it again. It goes back to that 80,000 reports are filed a year just in Washington. Keep calling. Even if you see it again, keep calling and be specific. If you see a child outside and it's freezing temperatures and they're just in shorts, don't call and just say they were dressed inappropriately. You explain to them that you saw this child and they were in their shorts and it was freezing, and I saw them in the morning and I saw them at night and they were pounding on the door, and you could visibly see that they wanted in, and the parent or the caregiver was refusing to let them inside, and you're afraid of their health and well-being. Next time you see something, do it again. Now that I have explained triggers of child abuse, signs of abuse and neglect, and reporting abuse, I am going to plead with you. Do not look the other way. Get involved. An innocent life can be at stake. And I want you to ask yourself, wouldn't you rather get involved and report suspicion and be wrong versus looking the other way and never reporting it and seeing that child on the headline the next day that he was beat to death? Think about the child that I worked with. If one person would have called earlier, she wouldn't have had to go 17 years of getting passed around, rented out from child pornographer to satanic ritual groups. No child should have to face that. So please, follow your gut feeling. It's there for a reason. And I just want to thank all of you for taking the time and listening to me, and remember that you can be the biggest change for a child by just one phone call.